Now it's my honor to announce another American hero, a great patriot, a colleague and a friend, Lieutenant Colonel Bill Cowan. You see him on Fox. He's one of the great analysts. But he's also one of the great warriors in our country, Colonel.
What a privilege to be introduced by Steve, who is himself a great American hero, Vietnam vet like myself, and a voice for all of us out there. We can't say enough about the things that he and his people do and the way he's grown. Breitbart. Joe, what a privilege to be back here my third time to speak. I don't know if Joe calls me back because I inspire people a little bit or because I scare them a little bit. Maybe it's a combination of the two. You know, I'm going to echo some of the things, some of the wonderful things that I heard Senator Perdue say. And my friend, General Harrell, I would note that General Harrell doesn't talk much about himself. Severely wounded in Somalia, totally integral to the battle that went on there. A well-known, strong warrior. We look at the special ops people in today's communities, Delta Force, SEALs, the other groups out there. None of them have, in those days, in General Harrell's days, none of them had the kinds of communications our special ops people have now, the kind of weapons we had these days. None of them had all the accoutrements that made fighting special operations or conducting special operations missions what they are today. So I can't say enough for him and other good friends that he and I have together. I was on Hannity the other, I got a call from Cavuto's people about 2 weeks ago, and they said, Colonel, we'd like you to come sit on a panel. I said, okay, what do you want to talk about? Well, we want to talk about national security and where the United States fits in the whole world right now. I said, well, you want some talking points? Oh, yes, sir, please. I said, well, that's easy. We're hosed. That's all you want to say? That's all I have to say. It's so true. You cannot look around the world. I mean, it made me stop and think for a second. I think the Antarctica is the only place we're not having problems with somebody right now, and maybe it's just because I'm not following the news close enough. You know, the lack of leadership out of this administration, this White House, this president, and unfortunately, and perhaps if I have time towards the end, I'll talk about this Pentagon, is atrocious. All of those things have contributed to put us in the position we're in right now. And I did a Hannity hit the other night. I think it may run this weekend. They taped it. And we were talking about why the president is leaning so far backwards on letting the Syrian refugees in, no matter what the deal is. And it caused me to reflect a little bit about a lot of the decisions that Obama makes, and made me suddenly think, and I ask all of you to think about this in your own right. Is it possible that many of the decisions he makes and many of the things he does are to validate his Nobel Peace Prize? Maybe. It may be. He's thinking about 20 years from now. He wants people to look back and reflect on all the good things he did. And we will all pay the penalties for whatever those, in his mind, good things, for whatever those things are that he did. Do we today, as a nation, have a lot to worry about? Yes, we do. I think I have about 20 minutes up here to talk about all the threats and problems that face us. And there are so many. I had to take some notes in the hopes that I wouldn't skip over anything, because virtually anywhere you look, we have problems. Without going into detail, and many of you know about EMP, electromagnetic pulse, a nuclear weapon in the skies above us, absolutely obliterating anything that's electronic. We don't have ATMs, we don't have gas, we don't have television, we don't have internet, we have nothing. We have nothing if an EMP device is exploded up there. Do I think it's going to happen anytime soon? I hope not. I think maybe the Iranians would like to try to do it. I don't know that they can get something up there and do it without us knocking it out of the sky, but that doesn't mean it's not a threat. Cyber. Some little guy sitting in a basement in Montreal, some teenager, somebody in, who cares where, doesn't matter where, somebody out there besides the big players is going to try and come after us in a cyber thing. We got the CIA director's email was just hacked. The director of national intelligence email just hacked. Now, hacking emails and hacking the system are two different things. But we know the Chinese are out there every day working at it. Hundreds of attacks every day on our political institutions, on our military institutions, on the Pentagon, the White House, on commercial infrastructure, you name it. The Chinese are out there working it. What are they doing? They're probably putting together this master scheme where they know that the right day they're going to flip that switch and they know how to get into every little place that they want to be. Is that going to defeat us as a nation? I don't think so, but is it going to scare the hell out of everybody here? The millions and millions of Americans who don't even think about those things, all of us do here. They're going to be totally taken back. We're going to suffer, and that's a potential, but I'm not up here to talk about that. That's not been the focus of most of the things I've done. I've been more involved with real people and real things. Let me talk quickly about the existential threats, the threats to taking our nation away from us. And I would say at this point in time, as all of you know, there's only two, Russia and China. Last year, Russia increased military spending, defense spending by 30%. 30%. By 2020, Putin's goal is to have a 1 million man and women standing army, 2,500 new tanks besides what they already have, 28 new nuclear submarines, 1,200 new helicopters and fighter aircraft, hundreds of new satellites up in the air, and at the same time he's doing this massive buildup, which is going to continue for a long time, he's talking about the two biggest threats that Russia faces, the United States and NATO. The United States and NATO. Now, help me out here. What's the United States done aggressively against Russia since the Cold War? Nothing. Nothing. What's NATO done aggressively against Russia since the Cold War? Nothing. So this guy's got it in his mind. Here he is. He's off on a path. He's already defining who the enemy is, and he's justifying the money and expenditures and things he's doing to increase the capabilities of the Russian military might and their ability to extend power. Can you believe, last year when I spoke here, we talked about the Crimea, how Russia had gone into the Ukraine and taken the Crimea. It's not even in the discussions about anything anymore. It's a given. Crimea now belongs to Russia. We all know it. Who cares? Let's move on. We don't ever talk about what's still going on in eastern Ukraine. There's still fighting going on over there. The Russians are still pushing to do everything they can. That's totally off the map. Nobody discusses it anymore. And Putin knows that very well. Look what Russia's done in terms of placing itself in the Middle East. Russia right now is becoming the principal arms supplier to the Egyptians, who used to be our great friends, who have asked us, please help us out. This White House is basically, for all practical purposes, abandoned General Sisi and President Sisi and the Egyptians because they don't like them because they ousted the Muslim Brotherhood, and that just wasn't right. This White House wants a return to true democracy. And I think last year I gave some of the statistics of how the democratic process indeed, in terms of the people that went out and spoke out against Mohammed Morsi and the Muslim Brotherhood, helped get General, now President Sisi, into power. But this White House continues to refuse to accept that. How about King Jordan? General Harrell was just talking about Jordan. The King of Jordan, King Abdullah, has asked the United States for help. Munitions, armament, things in the battle against ISIS. You know what we've done? Essentially nothing. Essentially nothing. So what does the king had to do? Go to Russia. Ask the Russians for help. Ask for what they're not getting from us, from Russia. Putin's fingerprints are all over Iran, too. That's very quiet under the radar screen, the things they've been doing to support the Russian nuclear program. But look, Syria to me is so interesting. Think about this for a second. I haven't heard this. This is just me speaking. Syria, Russians' involvement in Syria, their military involvement, the movement of their naval forces and air forces and ground forces into Syria was predicated on what? The terrorist bombing of a Russian airliner. And I guarantee you, that airliner was not brought down by ISIS. ISIS waited days before claiming responsibility. They'd claim responsibility for an accident out here on the interstate if they thought it would help them. Took days for them to claim responsibility for the downing of that airliner. In my judgment, that airliner was put down by Putin because it justified his movement into Syria, and nobody stepped back to complain about it. And incidentally, when we talk about what he's doing there, the Russians are not bombing the people that we're supporting. They're not necessarily bombing ISIS. I think the number of attacks they've run against ISIS is like 3% or 10%. The rest of the bombings are against the forces that we're supporting, trying to oust Assad. So this is upside down, but we don't talk too much about it. Now I got this whole laundry list of places to talk about, so please bear with me, and I hope I don't miss any countries because there's too many of them out there. China, 2 decades of double-digit increases in spending in their military budget. See what China's doing in the Spratly Islands, taking these atolls. Aircraft just landed there. It started out as just a little harbor that was just going to kind of be out there to help with some of their fishing boats that weren't supposed to be fishing there but were. Now it's grown into these 2 islands that are full up military bases and installations. I don't think they have a formal naval military presence there right now, but be assured they soon will. And they'll have a formal military presence there also. China is on the move. They're on the move anywhere they can get away with it. And, of course, dealing with us, they can get away with it most anywhere. A lot of people don't realize what China is doing in terms of all the money we have given them, a lot of the money. China's presence in Africa is astounding. Now, remember, at the end of the day, it's all about natural resources. And there are a lot of natural resources in Africa that we have interest in also. Chinese are in there spending money like mad, forging relationships with African leaders. You're a little bit under the table, and you've got a relationship. There are indicators that they may take the base at Djibouti. Djibouti is one of our America's primary presences up there by the Horn of Africa. The Chinese are trying to buy their way in there and push us out, and the president of Djibouti has indicated that he wants the Americans to leave. And the bases up there, incidentally, run a lot of our our Predator drones run out of that area. And we have special operations forces that operate out of there also. So China, quietly, below the radar screen, unless people are watching them carefully, they're out there doing what they can. They're using money and they're using muscle. And at the end of the day, is China going to come to the United States? I believe I said this last year, and invade us? You know, they're going to do amphibious landings on the Pacific coast? No, they don't need to do that. They've got bigger, grander visions of knocking us down to number 2 or 3 on the list. Right now, we should be number 1. We're teetering it at the most, powerful nation in the world. We're teetering. China, with a little bit of work, would like to push us off of there, and not a lot of effort on their part. Every time, I remember being with Glenn Beck one time, they were talking about Russian secret cells, terrorism cells, little networks, places around the country. Would there be some secret cells of Russians here in the United States? Or somebody else said, no, Glenn, there won't. But there's a hell of a lot of Chinese sleeper cells here in the United States. Every Chinese restaurant, in my judgment, is a sleeper cell. Every one. Every last one. Many of them funded by the Chinese government. And do I think for a minute that those people, if there were a major catastrophe, were going to be on my side or on China's side? I guarantee you. China's side. So we are inundated with sleeper cells. I went to Nome, Alaska. There were 2 Nome, Alaska, not much bigger than this end of Myrtle Beach. 2 Chinese restaurants in Nome, Alaska at 40 degrees below zero. North Korea. Now I'm away from existential threats, but now I'm really to talk about the people that can give us a hard time. Did North Korea pop a hydrogen bomb here a couple weeks ago? Doubtful. I don't think anybody, believes that. I don't think we know yet what they did. And I'll tell you what, typically when somebody does a nuclear weapon of some sort, you get all the radioactive isotopes up in the stratosphere, and they start drifting away, and then you get airplanes, American airplanes, running by, collecting that stuff, come back, do full-up analysis. Have we heard anything yet about what it was? We haven't heard anything about what it was, because it doesn't play to the Obama narrative for us to know that it was an atom bomb or a nuclear weapon or a hydrogen bomb or whatever. It doesn't play to the narrative. So as long as they can suppress the results of whatever that was, the better off for them. Iran. Well, we could talk about this one forever. And I do want to go back in just a little bit and talk about this incident over the last couple of days with the Iranians. I have a lifelong involvement with the Iranians. Do we ever have reason to trust them? No, but I don't. Many of us here don't. But certainly this White House desperately wants to trust them, desperately. I think it was just 10 days ago or 2 weeks ago that they just fessed up another secret underground facility that they had, an enormous underground facility that was all part of their nuclear enhancement or nuclear enrichment or nuclear development program. And I think there's good indicators that they've got some other hidden places. But I think also we're on the verge of releasing that money to the Iranians. Because here we are. Okay, why would we do this deal with the Iranians? The Nobel Peace Prize. Every one of these things, just think back for a second. Oh, the Nobel Peace Prize. Remember when Obama reached out to the Iranians? For good or for worse. He doesn't care. Remember another thing that's interesting. He's going to be long gone when we suffer the repercussions of many of the decisions he's made. And as our next president or the president after that is having to deal with it, the media is not going to spend much time at all going back and saying, well, this is all Obama's fault. They're going to focus on the story and how we react to it, what we do to it. Not many people go back and spend a lot of time talking about how Bill Clinton let Osama bin Laden get away. We know he did, but we don't spend a lot of time because once Osama bin Laden is in the middle of an incident, it's all about the incident. And Obama knows that. He knows that whatever decisions he's making right now that aren't going to have an immediate impact over the rest of his term, he doesn't really care. Because when there is some kind of an incident, it's old news that he's responsible for it. It doesn't matter. He's not running for office. He could care less. Hillary, it's a little bit different. Afghanistan. My son is on his 6th combat tour right now. 6th combat tour. He's in Afghanistan. As a father, I could not be prouder of him. He's a big, hulking Army guy working some special program. He speaks Pashtun. I'm hopeful that he's going to retire from the Army soon or he'll be back over there. But as a Vietnam vet particularly, and I know there's a number of Vietnam vets here, you can't help but look. You can't help but look at an inevitable loss. I can't find anybody talking about our victory over there. I don't think there's any reputable thinkers in Washington, D.C., think tanks or universities, colleges, whatever, anywhere, who are going to predict that we are going to win in Afghanistan, we meaning our side achieving our objectives. The current government's trying to negotiate with the Taliban about some kind of peace agreement, some deal. We see the fighting of the Marines. We've lost 2,500 men and women in Afghanistan. We just lost a few more, 5 or 6 killed here a couple of weeks ago. We've lost somebody here in this recent firefight in Afghanistan, Special Forces people. It's what a tragedy. What a sad, sad tale. There is no happy ending. And I think I said this last year. Do I want to see us lose in Afghanistan? No. Do I think we're going to win? No. Do I think we should get out of there? Yeah, sooner rather than later. I don't want to see one more person, one more American die over there. I don't want to see any Afghans die. I don't want to see any more money spent. We've spent at least $1 trillion, if not more. For what? For naught, unfortunately. Libya. Thanks to Hillary Clinton, we have Libya. Remember, Muammar Gaddafi was on our side, helping us out with al-Qaeda in northern Iraq, on our side, right up to the point that we helped oust him. Now, I'm not saying he was a good guy, but he was on our side helping us deal with al-Qaeda, right up to the point that we ousted him. What a tragedy Libya is right now. Totally upside down. And ISIS, who I'll speak just a little bit later, my wife just told me I have about 5 minutes left. I better talk faster. ISIS has got a major presence in Libya. You look from Libya, you're looking right up at Europe, southern belly of Europe. There's no positive solutions anywhere near on the forefront for Libya. And the ramifications of what's happened in Libya will go on for a long, long time. Iraq, good gosh. Here we go again. Is there a happy ending for Iraq? I don't believe so. There was a good chance for a happy ending had we not had to deal with ISIS. Maybe there was a chance. But remember, with ISIS coming in there and the fighting now, what ISIS done, pushed everybody out. We're relying on the Kurds to help us. The Kurds do not want to fight for the Sunni Arabs. I don't care what the White House says. I don't care what the Pentagon says. I spent 3 years working with the Kurds. I wasn't there every day, in and out working with the Kurds. They don't care about Sunni Arabs. They care about the Kurds. We cannot rely on them to fight the ISIS fight and expect them to win it by themselves. Are we expecting Iraqi Sunni tribes to join us? Maybe we missed that opportunity. We missed the opportunity to coalesce them around us. When we left in 2012, and then when we started having the ISIS problems, the first thing the Pentagon should have done is get every one of those great young men and women, counterintelligence men and women who were working with the Sunni tribes. They should have been on the phone the first day saying, hey, Sheikh, nice to talk to you. We haven't talked in a while. Look, can I come visit you, or would you come meet me in Dubai? I think we might be needing your help. We didn't do any of that. We left those guys out there on their own, and we're paying a penalty. It's going to be hard to get the Sunni tribes back there fighting on our side unless we're ready to give them an awful lot of money. The Shiite militia, supported by the Iranians, are probably the dominant military force right now inside Iraq. They're very powerful. They're well led. They're well trained. They're well equipped. They've got everything on their side right now, including the Prime Minister of Iraq. Personally, man, and some of you may disagree. I don't see a happy ending for Iraq. What a tragedy again. How many American lives? $1 trillion spent there, all wasted and lost. Syria, who knows what's going to happen in Syria? It's hard to tell who the good guys are and who the bad guys are anymore. I've got to follow the news all the time. I don't even know the names of all the groups or what side they're on over there. There's all these little factions that are equipped and funded and fighting, some of them pro-Assad, some of them anti-Assad, pro-ISIS, anti-ISIS. It's such an amalgamation of entities out there fighting. You don't know what the common goal of all of them is, but I would say we as a nation are probably at a point where we're saying, okay, Assad maybe isn't the worst thing that ever happened to us. That might be a good decision. We've got to find some way to coalesce on the battle against ISIS. Now, notice this morning in the news an Al-Qaeda attack in West Africa. Al-Qaeda in West Africa. A couple days ago in the news, an ISIS attack in Asia. Everybody needs to understand that ISIS and Al-Qaeda are in keen competition against each other. There have been a lot of Al-Qaeda groups that have pledged their allegiance now to ISIS, but those were little regional players. ISIS and Al-Qaeda are competing against each other. And whoever has the biggest impact, has the biggest bombs, the more killings, is the one that's going to get more recruits and more money from their Middle Eastern funders. And that's the battle that's going to go on for a long time. And that includes right here in the United States. Every time we talk about ISIS hitting the United States, we need to remember that Al-Qaeda would like to do it before them and in a greater and bigger fashion because they're going to get paid for it. All right, I'm going to talk for a couple minutes about the sailors, and then I want to talk about the fight against Afghanistan. Before I was a Marine, I was in the Navy. I look at those videos out there of our sailors there, and let me say, and I don't care if everybody in here disagrees with me, I don't have any compassion for those guys. When we get a Navy lieutenant down there saying he's sorry, Listen, just think back to our hostages in Tehran. Every one of them you saw, blindfold around them, hands tied behind their backs. Think about our prisoners from Vietnam, blindfolded, hands behind their back, tortured. And the first thing we do is we see all these sailors with their hands behind their head, 50 caliber machine guns on every one of their boats, other 7.62 machine guns, M4s, pistols, and we surrendered? We surrendered? What the hell is going on? I guarantee you couldn't name a scenario where General Harrell and the members of Delta Force would have surrendered to anybody. I guarantee you that. I have to say also that I'm sure, you can't put a dhow, you can't put a dinghy out in that Gulf up there without U.S. eyes on it. Radar, UAV, somebody's watching every last boat that gets in there. How in the world could these two boats get that far off course? Even if they had a navigational error, somebody in the command and control chain was responsible for getting them back where they needed to be. Anybody, your time you're running boats up and down there had to be some plan for some kind of air cover to respond if something happened to them. And I have to think that at the point they realized they were in trouble, they started talking to their next higher headquarters saying, we're in trouble, there's Iranian boats, we're a little bit lost, what do we do? Well, stand by, we have to check with Washington first. I guarantee you, because nobody wants to make a decision. And I'm not going to say that it's the White House's problem. I'm not even going to say it's the Iranians' problem. Everybody's beating up on Iran about this. They did what we should have expected them to do. No surprises there. My only surprise is that our sailors didn't do what needed to be done. Are you, Steve, are you ready to move me out because the senator's here? Okay, all right. So let me say something. Let me try and... Thank you, sir. So the president about a month and a half ago said, well, if somebody has a better plan for defeating ISIS, how about bring it to me? All right, Mr. President, there's a whole bunch of us out there who have some plans. And I don't have the total answer, but I have some of an answer. Anytime I see these parades of ISIS fighters up and down the street with flags flying and they're all looking good on their trucks and vehicles, or anytime I see some of the videos out there on YouTube of ISIS training camps where it's a great big giant compound and there's 50 or 100 ISIS fighters out there running around, I've got an idea, Mr. President. That's when we bring in the AC-130 gunship. If you have never seen the video of an AC-130 gunship in action, I encourage you to go to YouTube. It's devastating. It's devastating. It's looking right at him. It's got a 105 millimeter howitzer in the side of the aircraft. It's got either two 40 millimeter cannons or one 25 millimeter cannon. It is the most armored platform, weapons platform that we have. And you know what? When it shoots, it does not miss. It's got precision. When they want to hit something, they hit something. You want to see the most devastating thing in the world? AC-130 on YouTube. And you can't watch an AC-130 clip on YouTube and tell me we can't do something about ISIS. But you know why we can't? We can't for the exact reason that General Harrell said, the rules of engagement. Because if there's one civilian or suspected civilian within a mile of where that AC-130 gunship's going to shoot, the mission is off. It's off. And that's the problem. So we have to hope when we get our new president in that first thing he's going to do is review the rules of engagement. Let me say also, I don't think there are any general officers, unfortunately, there may be some exceptions, in the Pentagon who are going to come forward with any good ideas. If I were in charge, I'd get some of our young majors and lieutenant colonels, some of our E7s and new E8s who fought the fight in Iraq. Not who sat at Camp Liberty in the headquarters with their feet up on the desk and a cup of coffee in their hand. Get the people who fought the fight to help you decide how to win the fight. God bless every one of you. Look, we have to win this election or we won't be here next year. I encourage every one of you to fight the fight.